Okay, please introduce yourself.
Hi. I'm Salma. I'm a singer, songwriter, poet, artist in general, multi-talented, if I do say so myself. Um, yeah, so I like to exist in the artistic space, you know, and be around or be surrounded by creative people. Yeah. Sex is uh, physical ecstasy. Like it's like this surge of pleasure, and it can be, by yourself or with other people, as many people, whoever you want, whatever gives you pleasure. But in that physical kind of like ruggedy primal type of space, yeah. Yes, I do remember my first sexual encounter, and it was something that like kind of is very vivid till today because I was, in a situation when I was very, very young, like 7 years old, where I was introduced to like somebody taking advantage of me as a child. Sex plays the role of, it's like an antidepressant. At the same time, like liberation, it is like one of those things that you do that has no purpose other than giving you pleasure. Like, and it's nice sometimes to have that feeling.
Is that the same role it has played throughout your life, or has this did it used to be different before?
Yeah, of course, it was definitely different before because, you know, being exposed to sex at a very young age kind of makes it like just like a horrible thing. Just like the perspective of what sex is. It took a really long time for me to now feel it as something that is pleasurable to me and not just an experience that you need to have intimacy with somebody. Yes, I think communication is literally the foundation of great sex because how are you able to like nobody can read your mind basically, and it's for some people it's kind of hard to absorb that because they want their like when you have a partner, you just want them to be able to kind of read every little part of you and to know exactly what you want. But no, you have to be honest and be open and have that like have that tenderness of knowing that the other person is also a human being that does not know how to read minds, and hope that they also communicate with as much freedom so that we can all have a good time.
Mm.
Yes, not yeah. Until today, like there's definitely some things about sex that can give me anxiety, and that stems back into communication. Like if I'm not in the right headspace, especially being somebody that has experienced these like sexual abuse, and there are days where it's like there's parts of my body that don't feel like mine. Where they just reject any type of feeling from somebody else. Like it's like I'm in my space and I really need to protect this space at this moment. And so those are things that like having a partner is just like being able to communicate them and then being able to have that that love to give me this space or to make me feel safe. Yeah. Sex and intimacy. So I'm gonna start with intimacy because I feel like we've been talking about sex more. I feel like intimacy doesn't have to be sexual, first thing. But it definitely is harder, or it can be a lot scarier for us to be able to to open ourselves to, because it really needs to be raw. Like there's no condoms to intimacy, there's no protection. Like you have to give your entire full self in a moment with somebody. While sex can just be a physical experience, It can be something that you don't even know someone's name. You don't need to at this point. Like there's something that we both need right now, and it's consensual. Like let's get it, whatever your name is. Yeah. Consent is everything. It's everything. I feel like it really, even with non-consensual sex, right? It's like some of the time it's not just about someone saying no. It's really about putting your needs and your wants aside and realizing if somebody is actually in a good headspace to be intimate with you, and stuff like that, and having partners that get that. Like there's some people that don't understand that that's still rape, Like if you know that this girl doesn't really want it, but I really want it, or this guy or this person doesn't really want it, and you still do it, you're still taking advantage of this person. So yeah, consent really, it illuminates how humanity, how someone's humanity, I guess. Yeah. It shows this person is really human, and they really understand that everybody gets to do what they want, and they don't want to hurt anyone in the world, Okay, I think people can have casual sex with as many partners as they want. Catching feelings is a very personal thing. It's very much you and your own feelings and projections and all those things. But sex is I have memories of sexual encounters that were freaking amazing, but I don't want to date that person, It's just, this was amazing and I would do it again and again, but I'm not trying to have a committed, intimate relationship with you. Yeah, so casual sex is just consent and exploration and non-judgment and safe words and it's still something that's a working process, a work in progress for me. Still learning how to communicate these things to my partner, but at the same time, I do try to communicate, especially when I'm uncomfortable, and I like being around people that want me to vocalize how I'm feeling all the time, especially in that space. Yeah. I think, yeah, to some extent. I'm very open to exploring. I always say I'll try almost anything once, But at the same time, I definitely have explored enough to know, what extent I like this, I like pain, I like pleasure, I like, control, yeah. Yeah, I have suffered from performance anxiety.
Can you tell us about it?
So I feel like when I'm not in the right headspace, when I don't feel like I'm here, if I have other things in my mind, sometimes it's really hard for me to calm, or for me to experience orgasm or whatever. So that always kind of it takes then like sitting down and being able to talk or doing something else. But yeah, I think it's something that's like definitely common for me, and sex needs to be something that I'm really turned on right now. And if I'm not, I don't know how to, you know, I don't know how to control the headspace that I'll be in if I'm not like feeling it.
Okay. How do you deal with it when it happens?
How do I deal with it when it happens? I try to silence my thoughts, and I try not to lose myself in my mind, because that only just makes it worse. And the best thing I can do in that moment is to focus on what's happening, where I am, and whether or not I want to continue doing what I'm doing. And usually having some sort of intimacy within that space, like within that headspace, really helps me to kind of now ease back into it being like sexual and beautiful and pleasurable. Yeah. Not really.
Okay.
Because this body's banging. No. Like,
Yes.
I think it's one of those things where when I get naked and the other person gets naked, like we're already in that space where we're attracted to each other, you know? So it's a little bit of a turn off for a partner to be too self-conscious in that space. Like, it's like, if you don't want to take off your stuff, why did you take them off? Like, maybe what's wrong, you know? Like, if you want to take it slower, take it slower. But once I'm naked with someone, it doesn't matter how I'm feeling, like I'm gonna look. Like, no, this is it. This is what's happening. It's sexy. Like, your body in whatever form it comes through. Like, that's what I want right now. And I want somebody to feel that way about me too, because I think that took a long time. Like, there's parts of my body where I feel like I have like my nipples are a little bit like, you know, furry, you know, and so stuff like that. I feel like, oh no, like when I was younger, I'd be like, no, don't look at me, oh my god, like, oh, don't do this. I haven't shaved like my armpits or whatever, but now I'm like, I'm beautiful, and I feel like everybody that I'm attracted to is 100% just beautiful in every way that they are, and the way that they feel uncomfortable is valid, of course, but to me, we come in this space, you and me are both attracted to each other. It doesn't really matter if the bellies are sticking out or the hairs are popping. We want to create space where we're both feeling sexy. So I like that. I like feeling sexy. I like everyone to feel sexy all the time. Because why not?
Alright.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm very explore. I like to explore when it comes to sex, and I'm not very like tied down to a certain type of person that I like to be intimate with. And so that helps me learn new things and to figure out what I like and what I don't like, and in that space, that's when I know, like, oh, this is not something I'm comfortable with, or this is something I'm not comfortable with. But I don't think so. I don't think I have like sexual insecurities. Yeah. So I give thanks for that. But my thoughts on virginity is, I think it's a very weird thing for people to be obsessed with somebody else's like vagina or hymen or whatever like that, because you know, maybe if it was like a scientific like information, like how we do about periods and all these things, where you know what this space is and what happens when with your first penetration or whatever. But it's just like a really weird obsession over like young girls and what they're doing with their bodies, and stop, you know. It's like who cares about virginities? Why don't men have virginities? Do we count men's virginity? I don't even know. You see, like this is, it's really weird. It's some really weird stuff, and we don't have to take on these type of like absurd concepts from whoever made it up.
So, do you think people should, hold on to their virginity before they get married? Until they get married?
I think if you want to, like, it comes down to, do you want to do that? Do you want to wait? And I still don't think, because they say like, oh, in science, women that are really athletic, like who do horseback riding, or women that run a lot, have already lost their virginity. So it's like, I'm like, I don't even know what this is, like this whole virginity thing. I don't really understand it to that extent. So I'm like, I don't know.
Okay.
Do whatever you want. Wait, don't wait. Just do it when you're, over 18, please, if you can, if you want to. But I would advise that wait until you're 18 to have sex, because all of those like teenage years really go by really fast. You already have things on your plate. Like you can have it for like your 18th birthday, like how you go have a beer if you want, your first beer or whatever. And it's gonna be there for forever in your life. So it's not really something that you have to rush into. And you need to feel like you want to. You need to feel like, I'm ready to do this. And if it means that you're not ready at 40, it's okay. Like, it's your body. Do what feels good with your body. Find somebody that also understands that. Absolutely not. My family is Muslim. They're East African, Tanzanian families. And so, like, sex is not something that is really discussed. The only time I feel like it's something that becomes a subject is like, when you're in the kitchen with your aunties and moms, and they'll talk about like their first pregnancies, or like trying to have a child or whatever, or going to send-offs and kitchen parties for the ladies. That's where you'd have like an elder lady come on stage, and she would be talking about the pleasures of marriage and stuff like that. But it's still kind of merged into Islam and into, so it's not gonna be like deep.
Okay. So, what were your sources of information about sex growing up? Like, where did you gain that information from?
The information I gained about sex is from the internet. The internet is what really raised us when it comes to that type of stuff. I was like in the deep dark web, like going through the craziest phases, as a teenager and as a young adult and everything. I was like in the kinkiest sites, doing God knows what, just trying to explore, and like you feel like you're opened up to this whole new realm of exploration of your body and stuff, like Tantra and Kama Sutra and, and kinks and whatever. So, yeah, like the internet really did the thing. I think to some extent it's just kind of influenced how what I explore first, and what is accepted in society. Like I think that's what's happened with like my culture and how its influence is that like I know what my culture would frown upon when it comes to sex. And so obviously it's not something I'm going to, if I'm gonna do it, it's gonna be within my own realm of exploration, of like, low key. But yeah, it influences us in that way. I feel like there's a bit of limitations when it comes to growing up in certain cultures. And so even like my favorite people are people that like to be free and like to love whoever they want. And so being around like my circle, being around my family and my friends, it it really breaks my heart to know like that this is someone that is a like beautiful human being that is super generous and super has a huge heart. But none of that matters because if anything that they want to do goes against the stigmas of where we're raised, where we live, then it's just like shunned. Like there's nothing about them that can protect them from this type of like you know I want to say dangers, yeah, like being in danger for wanting to explore outside the norms of our cultures, yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting actually that our music, even my music, the music I make is very sensual, and that all of that inspiration comes from bongo flavor, and comes from the music of Tanzania and the stuff that I grew up listening to and watching. So we are very like we're very sensual people, like how we speak, how we walk, the way we dance, everything about us exudes this like a little bit of like steam, you know. But that's like where the line is, you know. It's like we can't cross that line. We can't now start talking about it in real life, serious conversations, or have serious conversations about it. But the only thing that's kind of like changing a bit is that we're a little bit more open to broadcasting and shunning people that do like sexual abuse on children and stuff like. There's a time where there was a lot of that happening, or there was a lot of news about children, especially boys, being sexually abused, you know. And I thought that was at least, a start, like to be able to talk about that would maybe be like a jumping stone where some of us can now chime in and be like, okay, so let's talk about it among women, among young adults, among, why are there so many child pregnancies, teenage pregnant girls in the villages, or, Yeah, I think it's like step by step maybe, but the steps are pretty slow. Yeah. I still don't think so. Maybe like us, maybe my my type of girl or my type of femme, meaning, from this century, like in their late 20s, early 30s, like living in some sort of middle to upper class, that then I would say yes compared to our parents and those guys that came before us. But I still think that in like generally in Tanzania and even in Africa and everything, like the majority, no, like not really, because there's still that responsibility that is like programmed into us where our pleasure comes second, that there's like this mission when it comes to when it comes to sex for women in our in our world, in our countries. So then, no, like it really depends. A bit for me, yeah, but not really for like the general majority. Yeah. Consent. Number one, consent. I wish I was taught about consent. I wish I was taught that my body is mine and I have the right and come to me when if anybody tries to do anything funny and these are your sexual parts and so somebody touching them is a red flag. It's a bad thing that they should never even try to touch these spots unless they are washing you and you're, like in that space where it's like somebody that's your guardian, like sexual communication, like how is it, and I read this somewhere where they were saying how will a child be able to communicate to you that something happened if they don't even know how, like the words for it, and that's why like in these situations you always have a teddy bear to demonstrate, like no, like teach them these words so then they can't help but say them, like they'll be able to communicate what happened, or else it's like we're leaving people vulnerable and in that space where they don't really realize that they're in danger, so I think that's like the most important thing. I feel like I wish I was taught, and still wish that like kids are taught now. I still feel like it's not something that's really like prioritized, even in sex education. Like I learned sex education, but it was like how to put a condom on a carrot or something. And it wasn't so much about like my body and whose body is this? It's mine, and that this is the age of consent, even something like that, like this is the age of consent. And because I learned it when I was like a teenager, and even at that time I still had like men in their 40s trying to buy me drinks and like you at 16, 17. But how come like in class they wouldn't talk about it like that? There would be campaigns, of course there was campaigns on television for it, but it wasn't really something that we were now being taught. Like we just know that, oh, fataki, sema hapana fataki, but you don't really understand what that means. Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess you already answered my next question about what if the current sex education curriculum is doing enough. Clearly, you think it's not doing enough.
No, I don't think so. I wanna do a lot on that. I really want to be able to speak to kids, and be able to talk about sex and giggle and like school children be able to feel safe to ask questions that they have about these things around each other, because like there's so many stories of us kind of saying, oh, when we were learning about periods, the boys were told to leave. Like, why are they told to leave? Do you know how many grown men I know right now that like and I do this as a joke, I'll show them a pad and I'm like, do you know what this is? And they'll have no idea, until I tell them, because it's sealed and it's pretty and it's pink. And so stuff like that, I'm like shocked. I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you not know these things? And you're a grown person with all this information about all these different things. Yeah. I feel like porn. Porn is like it's a very tricky subject, because of course to some extent I enjoy porn, but I know how too much of anything is harmful, and that there's a lot of porn addiction and people that just can't help it because there's just such easy access to it, everywhere. But also it's how the narrative that comes with porn really does not satisfy me at all. Like, a lot of people watch lesbian porn, male, female, because it's more intimate. It's not even just because, like, oh, straight, whatever. This is straight people, queer people, it doesn't matter. Because they're looking for that softness and intimacy in this scene, you know? And this also comes with, like, you know, other types of, like, when I watch boys, you know, just like boys in that space, it's also very intimate. It's different from watching like hetero porn, where everything just feels so lifeless and pounding. You know? And it just looks like it hurts, and it looks like there's it's absolutely shot not at the perspective of like what a woman would be looking at, like completely no. It's really like a mind fuck, you know, to watch and have to get off on that. Like, it's like I can't get off on this. This looks violent and not in like the fun way. Yeah. So, but I think right now there's more and more spaces that are opening up that have more wholesome stuff, and also I also love that a lot of people are making homemade homemade porn. Yes, like keep that going, because it's a lot more real and a lot more like you can feel that everybody's getting off and having a good time and feeling pleasure, and this is the person of their choice. And even like OnlyFans people and like all those girls and boys that do that, they're also doing like collaborations, and it just feels so much more like they're in control and they're not just like being pimped out to do all these crazy things just to be able to make some money. And also because porn, I also don't want to support like rape culture, which sometimes is there in porn. There's like underage girls working in porn. There's so much, it's so messy. So really trying to be selective, or not at all. Like, you know, I don't need porn, but if I'm gonna watch it, I like to make sure that I'm watching something that does not fuck with my conscience. Yeah. Can I swear?
Yes.
Okay.
Alright, cool. Well, that's it. Thank you, Salma.
Thank you.
Alright.